Well, we already started this conversation about economy, breaking down the definition of it. I don't know if you wanted to go over your definition of economy as a helpful way to reshape, redefine language so that we can actually see what is happening when we use these terms like economy. We aren't actually speaking the same language if two people are talking and they're saying, well, the economy is this or the economy is bad or so what is your definition of the economy?
Well, there's the official definition, which describes it. Well, I think it's that official definition that we have allegiance to, in the sense of it. This is how the goods and services get produced and distributed throughout society. This is how the system reproduces itself. We reproduce our lives. So that's what we're told the economy is for. It's to keep everything running. And so the notion of moving on is frightening because in terms of the official rhetoric, the system delivers the goods. I mean, there's nothing else but the system, and we have to have these goods in order to survive. So that's what makes it self-reinforcing. That the system seems to be the provider of all, is in fact the provider of all, because every other option has been eliminated or is in the process of being eliminated if power has its way. But if we go deeper into authentic, actual, looking at what the activities are, we're seeing that in actual earth terms, economy means consuming the earth, and that is why we're approaching or in an end game for power globally, because there's only so much any physical object, and the earth is a physical object, can be chipped away at until it is no longer viable as a living thing. And once the system doesn't seem to deliver the goods anymore, from its perspective, then there are too many of us. And for one, I don't want that to be a challenge that power faces without us asking them to go sit in a corner somewhere while we take over, because they don't care about us.
Well, to play devil's advocate, so does that, just because we have an economy, which we've been given the definition, you've given us the definition, the eating of the earth, and I want to challenge that, just because we have an economy, does that mean that then we have to exploit the earth? Some people would say that the problem with economy, this economy, I guess global economy, is that we that capitalism is fine. It's just that there's we have to deal with the greed that comes up within it, and that if we made an economy based on what makes sense, so more localism, more putting more humanity back into the economy, that that would fix a lot of our problems. Our problems is that we're buying goods and services from China, where they oppress their people, rather than buying and creating things that are produced in the United States and locally. And if we started buying our food from each other, from farmers, that would fix a lot of the oppression and the waste of energy and resources needed to get goods and services to individuals.
And I think that's a con. That interpretation of our present moment is a con, and I hear it all over the place on the left, in progressive venues. What I'm hearing is that that we have to, as you were saying, you know, develop local economies, buy from each other, become self-sustaining, you know, all this good, you know, develop villages. All this sounds really good, and it, in every single one of these, you know, solutions, there is never a mention of power. And that's not by accident, by any means. There's a book I hope people at some point check out in your leisure, called English Villagers of the 13th Century by George C. Hummins. And there's an interesting chapter called Lord and Man. He's writing about 13th century villagers, and what I learned by being able to commune with the ancestors, well, from whatever political persuasion, is that power is power is power is power. There's a reason why Plato's Republic can serve as a propaganda playbook for power across the millennia. Plato believed that the art of politics is the art of herding the human cattle. Knowing that puts this issue of economy into perspective. It allows us to consider the possibility that much as Shakespeare staged a play in Hamlet, that economy or power has staged a play in a play, that we are given multiple layers of facade to try to figure out where the real truth lies. And this is a quote from George Hummins. The distribution of wealth between the lord of the 13th century England and any one of his men was not only unequal, but was unequal because the man spent a part of his time working without any return for the Lord. Yet, the minds of men didn't dwell on this, except in times of disorder. And I argue we are living in times of disorder, when men's and women's minds start pondering things more deeply than before, because the system is not delivering the goods. Men usually, when the goods are being delivered, look at this distribution of wealth not as it really is, that is, as it would appear to a skeptical outsider, but only as it is conceived to be according to a traditional mythology. Perhaps it's better to say that in every society a few men have been able to see the distribution of wealth and other such institutions as they really are. But if a few men have penetrated that far, they have usually penetrated far enough and no better than to give the reality away. And then he gives a quote from Benjamin Disraeli: "Sensible men never tell." And generation after generation of we commoners seldom get to talk about that. It's never, my entire life, been a discussion we've been invited to have, which is that, is this reality, this economy, in truth, the way it's being talked about and discussed over the airwaves, is that the truth? Is it really about some rational means of getting goods and services to all of us? Or has it been specifically constructed in order to herd the human cattle, which would make it a play in a play, which we are not supposed to discuss in authentic terms, as they are.
Well, can you break that down? Because I'm unclear on how the economy is a play within a play. How does the production and transportation of goods and services keep us contained in our individual atomized boxes?
Well, the play economy is within the larger play, supremacy. Every hierarchy must culminate in a pinpoint, said Mussolini. And I'm arguing in my recent series of books, which you can read on the website, that, and this one is particularly in volume 2, Revealing Division, that power is involved globally, in a global game of supremacy. Who's going to come out on top? So no matter what nation you live in order to play the game, you got to control the cattle. That's fundamental. And you have to have resources to play the game. The only source of resources is the earth, whether it's earth in us or the earth beneath our feet. You have to control the resources in order to control us and in order to fuel your competition, your grand battle to determine who has the big cojones. Who's the big guy? Who comes out on top? Now that sounds childish. And I think we have to begin recognizing it is profoundly childish. And that we are in fact living the dreams of abandoned children. Plato said we breed our animals with great care but neglect our own race. What is up with that? And so the real discussions we need to be having, we aren't having. The ones that will lead out this door of containment and on to a future in which every single one of us can live our full human possibilities. That discussion we will never be invited to have. We're going to have to do this on ourselves, for ourselves, with each other. I like the idea of Howard Dean's meetups, ongoing purpose discussion around the question of what world do we want. That is going to get us to the solutions, not waiting for power to invite us to help them redesign a world. It will never work.